Hello and welcome to the Life is Story podcast. I'm Josh Olds, and today I've got a very special guest on the line with me. It's New York Times best-selling author of You'll Get Through This, Max Lucado. Max, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule, and I know you're very busy, so for you to do this interview means a lot to me.
Oh, thank you.
Now we're here to discuss your just-released book, or at least it will be by the time this podcast airs, You'll Get Through This. Tell us a little bit about what the book is about.
Well, You'll Get Through This is exactly that, a message of hope to encourage people who are passing through tough times. It's really a war against despair. It's a message against despondency. As a pastor now for 30 years, I've realized that there's something that happens to people when they pass through tough times that if they're not careful, they will slide down into such a pit they'll never come back up. And what I wanted to do is give people a message of hope that would just encourage them and lift them up and help them out of this through this season of difficulty. I based the study or the book on the life of Joseph in the Old Testament because I don't know anybody who went through as many tough times as he did, but boy, he didn't just survive, he thrived. And he had such a great understanding of how God used those tough times to create something good.
Yeah. I think the issue of pain and suffering is sort of just all pervasive in the world. Why write about it now? What made it timely in this moment?
That's a good question. It's actually an idea that I've had for a long time, Josh. Again, just my assignment in life is to be a pastor, which means that I find myself in conversations with people who are passing through tough times, hospitals, funerals, counseling sessions. And for quite some time, I've felt in my own life I needed a tool, a book that would help people who were in these tough times. Because the ones that I had were either so deep and theological on the question of suffering that most people couldn't understand them. I couldn't understand them. Or they tend to be flippant. You know what I mean? You're gonna it's gonna be good. It's all good. God's good. They don't match up with the pain that a person is feeling. And I'm not saying that this book does perfectly. I'm just saying it's my best shot at it. Basically, what I'm trying to help people see is we do get through things, not quickly and not without pain. But the big promise is that God can take the messes of our lives, whether we created them or whether we just inherited them.
Yeah.
God can take anything and He can make it into something good. Maybe not immediately, maybe not this week, and maybe not even until eternity will we really understand. But this is hope that God can take, just the tragedies of life and under His care and supervision turn them into something that is positive and good.
Yeah, and I really think that's going to be I don't want to say the selling point for the book, because I know you're not just trying to sell books, but that's going to be the kicker for the book, because it finds that balance between not being flippant. Because I feel like a lot of people, Christians and non-Christians, someone's going through some pain. Oh yeah, you'll get through this, and it just kind of seems like a platitude said by those who don't have to go through it. How do you feel like when Christians respond to evil, how do we find that balance and avoid it being a platitude?
It's one of the most difficult balances to strike, isn't it? And in fact, I know there's a place in the book where I apologized because as I was writing and I said, that paragraph just sounds like a platitude. It just sounds like something that fits on a bumper sticker. At the same time, it's truth. Yeah. We do get through things. And it's hard since you can't use eye contact and you don't have the nonverbal tools of putting your arm around somebody or listening to them. There is a tendency that a printed message or a message on the internet can come across as shallow. So it is very tough. It's a challenge. I'm just praying that the story of Joseph itself will serve as a useful stage to prove there was evil. Joseph in his life said, at the end of his life said, "You meant evil against me." But God intended it for good. And that's my message in this book. Yes, there's evil in the world. There's tough times in the world. But God can take those and turn them into something good.
Yeah. How do you hope people will respond to the book?
Well, I hope people will respond by taking a step out of despair. By taking a step out of despair. If I can just talk one person off the ledge, if I can just convince one person not to make matters worse by making a bad decision, that's my goal. I'm not seeing this book as a quick fix, as an overnight, one read and you've got life figured out. But I do hope to talk people away from despair. Because when we're in despair, Josh, you know this, we just make bad decisions and we draw the wrong conclusions about life. But if we can just hold on to some hope, then we'll think more clearly and make better decisions, and we really will get through tough times.
Yeah, I feel like when people are in such deep pain or hurt, that it can really go two ways. Either that pain and hurt draws them closer to God, or it takes them farther away. And it seems to me like it's the job of the Christian to respond to that hurt in such a way in which that person can then be drawn closer to God.
I think that's a great statement. I do. To your question earlier and to my concern earlier about our response coming across as shallow or as empty platitudes. If you're in the middle of a tough time, if you're going through a hard time, you want somebody to come in with hope.
Yeah.
If you've buried your child or you've lost your loved one, you want somebody to give you some words of hope. Not arrogantly, not insensitively, but boy, down deep, you're wanting somebody to come in and say, "Okay, I'm sorry. Hang in there. You're going to get through it." You want it cast right, but boy, you really want it.
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to do it if we don't? Who's going to do it if Christians don't? We have such a wonderful worldview when it comes to suffering. I mean, the Christian worldview says, yeah, life sucks, but this won't last forever. And God's going to use even the part that stinks for something good. That's very attractive, Josh, when you compare it to Plan B, which is there is no God, so all our suffering is random. We're just weather vanes, turned by the next storm. Well, that's not very encouraging. I would much rather have Plan A. So our job, as you just pointed out, as Christians, is to come in with Plan A, cast it in a way that's digestible and understandable, and do our best to give people hope.
Yeah, and I think a book like this not only serves to give people hope, but it also gives an apologetic, because one of the main contentions people seem to have against the Christian faith is, how could a loving God allow suffering? And what they don't seem to realize, every worldview has to deal with the issue of suffering, and the Christian worldview is the only one that can give ultimate hope.
That's a great point. And I try to tackle that in the book. It's not a book. It's not an apologetics on human suffering, but one of the chapters that meant the most to me is one that's called "Is God only good when the outcome is?"
Yeah.
What if the outcome is not good? We Christians need to be careful, because sometimes we'll say, my team won, God is good, or my body was healed. God is good. And the suggestion is, well, was he not good when your team lost? Is he not good if your body's not healed? Is God only good when the outcome is? And this is a good discussion for Christians and non-Christians alike to have.
Very much so. Was there any part of the book that, as you were writing it, that struck you as especially convicting or difficult to write?
There was a part of the book that helped me, and I was surprised by this. I was surprised by the practical way that Joseph handled the famine. Remember, in case somebody doesn't know, he was the son of Jacob, one of 12 sons of Jacob, sold into slavery by his brothers, ended up in Egypt, working as a servant, then thrown into prison, but then shoulder tapped by Pharaoh to be prime minister, and because he told Pharaoh, hey, get ready for 7 years of feast and then 7 years of famine. So that's the short version of Joseph's story. When the famine hit, he was ready. He was ready. And what struck me is how practical the story of Joseph is in helping us handle major catastrophes. We love the story of Joseph because unlike the story of Moses or Elijah or even Abraham, they all have supernatural moments. Joseph, in fact, there's not a time in which there's a conversation between God and Joseph recorded. If Moses is the Martin Luther of the Bible, Joseph is the accountant. I mean, he's just kind of this practical guy who works through problems. And when it came time for the famine, he said, all right, we're going to save up for 7 years, and then we'll be ready for 7 years. And he just had a measurable index card size solution to the problem. And you know what, Josh? I have found that to be such a helpful bit of advice to give to people who find themselves in a difficult situation. I say, just do what Joseph did. See if you can come up with a plan, 2 or 3 things you can do, write it on an index card, put it up on the mirror, and just stay focused on that plan. Because a panic, crisis can cause us to sacrifice the plan and not have one. So I think, to answer your question, that was a surprising discovery for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing that I see in the story of Joseph that we may not always think about is just the issue of perseverance, because you'll get through this, and then we read the story of Joseph, and it doesn't seem like it's a very long story to us until we realize the number of years that Joseph spent going through these ups and downs of living in the Egyptian culture.
Isn't that a good point? Because you can read the story of Joseph before you have breakfast. Mm-hmm. It seems like it was all so fast. Then you stop and you realize, hey, wait a second, 10 years in servitude, 2 years, at least 2 years in prison, sold into slavery when he's 17. He doesn't see his dad until he's in his late 30s, at least, maybe 37. And so there's a long stretch there that he's going through what you and I are going through. And that is, hey, I don't know if I'm going to get out of this alive. I may die in this desert. I may die in this prison. And that's how struggles are. We think they're never going to end. And what we really need in those times is the belief that even though I may not be able to do anything, God still can. And he's doing something even though I cannot see it.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question for you, because I know that you have to get going. This is more of a personal question for me. I graduated seminary in this last December and have been working as a pastor, youth pastor, for the last few months, and love to write. What would your advice be to someone who has a calling to write and to be a pastor?
I'd say, way to go. Way to go. I think we need good writers, Josh, people like you who have an appreciation for the Bible and a love for the church, but love to write. It's a very difficult ministry sometimes. Writing is hard work, and I sure don't position myself as a great writer, but I do see the value in recording messages on the written page or on the screen so that people can read them, not just now, but in generations to come. And so I would encourage you, give it a go. It's harder than most people think. It requires some, pretty serious tenacity. But if God has called you to be a writer, hey, congratulations. You're in the league with, he called Luke to be a writer, Paul to be a writer. You're in pretty good company, and he'll give you what you need. He'll give you what you need. So go at it and see what happens.
All right, Max. Thank you for everything. It's really been a pleasure talking with you. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Well, you do a great interview. I really appreciate it, and I do hope we can do it again.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you, Josh.
Thank you so much. It was, like I said, it was a pleasure.
Oh, my privilege, my privilege. And you keep up the good work. I'm looking at your webpage here, your blog.
Yes.
So well done.
Thank you so much.
So well done. Congratulations. I know it takes a lot of work.
It's been a work in progress. If you had told me when I started this a couple of years ago that this is what I'd be doing now, I wouldn't have believed it. But God's opened doors.
My goodness. Good for you. Well, you keep up the good work, all right?
I will.
And if I can ever do anything, let me know.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye.